Hey, welcome back, Intermediate Algebra. So on this one, quadratics by taking square roots, we start getting a little bit more involved now into our quadratics unit. Um, and what they're asking is they want you to find the zeros of this equation. The problem is, if it were just this part here, not an issue, okay? Not an issue at all. But the problem is they've added this to it. And so what we have to do when they have this part added or subtracted on the outside is we first have to figure out what does this equal right here. So you may remember back when we used to do our generic rectangles. Well, they're back, okay? So we need to do a generic rectangle of x minus 7 times x minus 7, which is to figure out what this equals. And we've got x times x is x squared, and x times negative 7 is negative 7x, and these two make negative 7x, and negative 7 times negative 7 is positive 49. So as we plug that information in for this part of the equation, I'll do it right here for you. We've got x squared minus 14x, the set negative 7x plus negative 7x, plus 49, and then minus that 64 on the outside. Now, these two are like terms, so we can combine the positive 49 and the negative 64. Those two would equal negative 15. So we have a new quadratic now, which is x squared minus 14x minus 15. We now have to factor that. We have to find the x-intercepts for that. So how do we do that? Well, if you remember, we used to do these things called diamonds of rectangles. So those are back as well. Like I said, this one gets more involved. So in the diamonds of rectangles, you take your a term, which is this one, times your c term, which is this one. Negative 15 times x squared is negative 15x squared. This is your b term right down here, negative 14x. I'm also going to set up my rectangle. Remember, this is the a term in here, this is the c term in here. And now I got to figure out what are two numbers that multiply to negative 15x but add up to 14x. And as you think about that for a while, you might come up with, oh, negative 15x times x is negative 15x squared, and negative 15x plus a positive x is negative 14x. We then take these two terms and we transfer them over into here, into these two boxes. Doesn't matter which box they go into. And then we factor these again. What do these two have in common? Well, they have an x in common. It's out there somewhere. What do these two have in common? They have a negative 15 in common. These two happen to have an x in common, and these two really have nothing in common. When you have nothing in common, you always have a positive 1 in common. So those are our factors, which means the factors are x minus 15 and x plus 1. This one, if we do zero property product on this, would equal positive 15. And this one right here, if we do zero property product, would equal negative 1. So our x-intercepts are negative 1 and positive 15. The lesser one is negative 1. The greater one is positive 15. You may want to watch that a couple times just to make sure you know what you're doing on that one. However, there is another type that they are going to throw at you. So I wanted to go over that as well. Everything looks exactly the same right now. We have the same kind of setup here. We have the x minus 4 quantity squared minus 16. So the first step is we're going to take and we're going to multiply these together, x minus 4 times x minus 4. I put it all together this time. So x minus 4 times x minus 4, we've got x squared, negative 4x, and 16. I'm then going to plug this information right here back into this equation right here. And as I do that, I have x squared minus 8x, which is the negative 4x plus negative 4x, plus 16. But then I have that minus 16 that came from right here. Okay, so again, I'm going to add these two together, but you're going to notice when I add these two together, they will cancel, and that's okay. If they cancel, it makes a really easy process. I don't need to do diamonds and rectangles because these two have something in common right now. And what they have in common is they both have an x term in common. And what's left over is x minus 8. I've already factored. I did not need to do diamonds and rectangles on this one. And we just do zero property product. So we set x equal to 0. Well, if x equals 0, then x equals 0. And this one, if we do zero property product, would be x equals positive 8. So we now have our two x-intercepts right there without doing the diamonds and rectangles. And we've got our lesser value of 0, our greater value of 8. So you're either going to have to do more complicated if this turns out to be a true quadratic, but if it turns out to be a two-term quadratic like this one, then it ends much quicker and easier. when I did this, most of them ended up being this way, so I'm just letting you know that. That's all I got, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.